Red Dead Redemption 2 is a masterpiece.
Nor do I want to be this Dutch bandit, whomever teammates.
Sort of. You see, I've made two videos on Red Dead Redemption 2, both of them reviews, one in 2022 and one in 2021. And now that I'm back on this channel, making videos like this, I was replaying Red Dead anyway, so I thought, why not do another video on Red Dead? You see, Red Dead Redemption 2, as you already know more than likely, is one of the most popular games ever made. It is absolutely held in high regard, and you can see why. Look at the animations, look at the visuals, look at the dialogue, look at the gameplay. It looks fantastic. It absolutely does. But the reality is, the level design is flawed. A lot of the missions are quite boring. There is a lot of walking around, tailing people, riding horses and feeding horses and listening to Arthur go, "You're a rag girl." But either way, I still think this game is fantastic, so let's talk about it. Also, if you want the spoiler review, where I'm going to talk about Chapter 1 all the way up to the epilogue, that'll be on the Sticky Man in the next couple days. If you don't know what the Sticky Man is, it's my second channel, go check it out if you want to see a spoiler review of Red Dead, and I go into detail, sort of, because I talk a lot. So, Red Dead Redemption 2, you follow a new character called Arthur Morgan. Arthur Morgan is definitely a character, yeah. A lot of people would say he's one of the best characters ever made, if not the best character ever made in a game. And honestly, it's hard to see why you'd argue against that. You're part of Dutch Van der Linde's gang. It's a gang of outlaws that rob people and kill people and then act like they're good people. That's what they are. You're on the run from the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons is like an agency that is hired by a private businessman called Leviticus Cornwall. Now, Cornwall is everything this gang despises, okay? And that's what this whole game is about. It's about running away from the future. Questions about loyalty, tradition, you know, murder and being thieves and stuff. And it's absolutely fantastic. The story of Arthur Morgan is really damn good. It's really good. The character development throughout the story for every character, Dutch, Lenny, Micah, Hosea, even Abigail from the first game that John is married to. Everyone just gets a moment in this story. And there's a reason why. It's because it's like 40 hours long, man. This story is really long. When you talk about games, completing games, and everyone talks about what's the 100%, most people, in fact 95%, probably even 99% of people will never ever 100% complete this game because it is huge. There is so much to do. There is so much story to tell. There's so many little moments throughout the open world that we're going to get to. I would argue it's almost impossible for anyone that has a normal life to complete this game 100% unless you're like a content creator that gets paid to play, you know what I mean? But the story does justify its length. There are 6 chapters throughout Arthur's story, and then there is an epilogue, okay? And each chapter is focused on specific themes. There is one theme throughout the story that is, you know, about loyalty because of Dutch and the gang and stuff like that. But each chapter has like a different theme to it. And I just really enjoyed it because there's so much story here. There is so much that you cannot put it into one of these videos that I make, these short, you know, 10, 15 minute videos. The story just does such a phenomenal job of getting you to like these characters that do unspeakably bad things a lot of the time. Hell, I even like Micah. Most people don't like Micah for good reason, but Micah is actually quite an interesting character when you put your feelings aside, you know what I mean? I mean, all of these characters are interesting, even the ones that really don't get much screen time, like, let's say, Pearson. Pearson is the camp's, like, chef. He's a cook. He makes stew all the time. And even he has some moments throughout the story where he gets a bit of development, where you get to see what he was really about, you know what I mean? What kind of person he is. And it's really interesting, because every single character just gets a moment. I mean, Lenny! Everyone knows the Lenny mission by now. The Lenny mission where you get drunk with Lenny is fantastic. I loved it. It's probably my favorite mission in the entire game. And everything just builds this story up to just an absolutely amazing conclusion that I won't spoil here. I know most people have already played this game, and if you haven't, you definitely don't want it spoiled. But everything builds up to one of the best conclusions that you could play with a story this long. Now, it's not perfect. Obviously, it is too long. Chapter 5 is set on a completely separate location from the world map, for reasons that I won't spoil, and it really doesn't need to be in the game. You know why it's in the game once you hit chapter 6, because something happens that's pretty integral to that final chapter, and you realize the amount of time that needs to pass for it to really happen in the story, without having to drag it out for even longer. But there are some pacing issues here and there, especially with Chapter 5. Chapter 5 could definitely be cut, and Chapter 1 is a bit slow. Everyone can agree on that. Chapter 1 is a bit slow, but when you first play it, I remember my first playthrough, I wasn't bored in Chapter 1 because it was introducing you to the new mechanics, to how the game works, how different it is to the original Red Dead Redemption, how different it is to GTA, how different it is to all these other games Rockstar have made. But outside of that, the only issue I have with it is pacing. Like, everything is so well crafted here. The performances from Roger Clark, specifically with Arthur Morgan, is fantastic. Like, you know, there's a reason he won Best Actor at the Game Awards of 2018. But everyone brings their A game with the performances. It's absolutely incredible. I just think the story is fantastic, man. I just love it. I could go on and on and on, but I don't have many issues with it at all. Like I said, the pacing. That really is about it. But my issues come in with gameplay, which isn't a surprise with Rockstar Games. Let's talk about it. Okay, so the gameplay is really good. Okay, let's get that out of the way. It's not a bad game at all. The gunplay is fun. The traversal is fun. The open world is incredible to explore because there's so much to it. There's so many different little moments, interactive moments, stuff you can find in the open world. I mean, hell, I came across this little camp. Well, not a camp, it's in a house, and these guys are getting drunk in there, and you just listen to their conversation. These are fully well-written conversations that are quite hilarious, and I just open the door and they all shit themselves at this perfect time, and I love it. That stuff is what makes Red Dead so addictive and so enjoyable to play outside of the story.
Take it easy, will ya? What the hell is that? It ain't right. Ain't nice.
Oh, wait.
False alarm! False alarm! Holy smokes!
You see, the way I look at the open world of Rockstar, or any traditional open world in a sense, like Ubisoft games, Rockstar, any other open world game, you know what I mean? But the way I look at Rockstar games is that they've nailed this traditional open world. Red Dead Redemption 2 is pretty much flawless for that kind of open world, where you have markers on the map, where you follow the map and you go to these locations. But it perfectly blends casual playstyles with playstyles that actually just want to explore and, you know, just go on your own tangent, you know what I mean? You go explore, you can go have your fun, you can do that, but you can also just follow the main missions. That's what I think Rockstar's open world games are really good at, including GTA, but Red Dead Redemption 2 has mastered that. It's a bit different from like games like Elden Ring that I'm playing right now, or Zelda, for example, but that's what I mean. There are different kinds of open world games. You've got the traditional open world games that has been popularized for like the last decade, and then you've got these new kinds of open world games that are really starting to go back to what open world games used to be, where you just explore. You know, you just explore and find your own way. There isn't a need for these massive stories or anything like that. Although Elden Ring, you know, there is a pretty big story there. But I'm on my first playthrough. I've played like 4 hours of it. Okay, I'm trying to get through it. But the problem with Rockstar is their level design. Like they get the gun mechanics down, they get the customization down, they get the open world down. But their level design is always a letdown. Every mission in this game, you're going to be either following someone or going and doing a tedious task. It is really annoying. You're going to go up to a camp member, you're going to follow them to a location, you're going to go into a shootout, or you're going to do a specific activity, and then the mission ends. That's the entire game, which is really mind-numbing after a while because of how long it is. Like I said, the main storyline is like 40 hours long if you're doing it properly. So it can get really tedious, especially when you're doing the same thing over again. You ride your horse, you go to a location, you shoot guys, then you do it again and again and again. I've just repeated myself, and that's probably already pissing you off. Now imagine that for 40 hours. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get at. But despite the mediocre level design, it's still enjoyable. You still have a good time when you push aside the fact you are kind of doing the same thing over and over again, because every game does that. Every game is repetitive. That is something that I always failed on this channel to really get across, is that every game is repetitive. So when I criticize a game for being repetitive, it's because I've noticed how repetitive it is, and Rockstar games are no different from that scenario. It is incredibly repetitive, but it's still fun. The gunplay is still fun. It carries the game when you're in those action moments. Switch it from your pistol, switch it to your carbine or your shotgun or your bow or whatever. It blends really well, and then you got the Deadeye system, which is equally as good but a bit of a cheat code. So despite the mediocre level design, you still enjoy it. Now there are a couple things that really are kind of half-assed, to be honest with you. Like the whole health, stamina, weight system, it really isn't needed in the game. I know why they put it in, especially for chapter 6, but it really isn't necessary. With your health, you're having to drink these tonics, and you gotta eat food to keep your health up and stuff like that. And I get that why they did it. It does work at the beginning of the game, but once you stock up on those supplies, you are quite literally unkillable. You are invincible. They give you options to be invincible. You can drink these tonics and it fortifies your health or your stamina or your Deadeye, and you just can't die, which makes it probably the easiest Rockstar game ever made. And that isn't a good thing, in my opinion. There is no difficulty options here. You could choose if you want those invincibility, I'm going to call them potions, because that's what they basically are. They're basically potions, let's be honest. You could choose whether you want to use them, but at the end of the day, the mission design is so repetitive that you don't want to die because you don't want to have to walk all the way to the mission again. You know what I mean? But this is what I mean. You're not walking back to the mission. You're actually just doing the mission, but most of the mission is just walking or riding your horse. It's very irritating. But outside of that, honestly, that is the only issue I have with it. The open world is such a chilling experience. Whether you're hunting or just walking around or riding around or just interacting with NPCs, everything just works. And all those little events that I talked about earlier that appear out of nowhere really solidify this world as being lived in, which is always missing from open world games that come out, which is why Rockstar is so popular. It's not just the IP of GTA, it's not just the IP of Red Dead, it's because you know what you're gonna get with the game. You know they're gonna do their absolute best at bringing these worlds to life because of how many years they spend on making them, you know what I mean? And it just never fails to entertain me every time I go back to it. It has an emotional gut punch right at the end, and despite the mediocre level design, those missions, when they really kick off with the emotional beats, with the story beats, combined with the gunplay and the horse riding, mate, it's phenomenal. It is. It's one of the best games ever made. If you disagree, that's completely fine. I'm not going to talk about Red Dead Online because Red Dead Online is awful, okay? That's all I need to say. I made a review back in, I think it was 22. You can check that out on the channel if you'd like. My opinion hasn't changed. Red Dead Online is pretty awful. It's pretty awful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you like it, but I think it's terrible. It's a microtransaction hell, but that's enough about that. But yeah, as I said, if you want like a spoiler review, which I'm going to be making in the next couple days, hop over to the Sticky Man and you'll get that. That'll be a fairly lengthy video, and I'll go into depth of the story, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, with spoilers, which it's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, as I was saying, it was just a blast to play Red Dead 2 again. If you're thinking about it, just install it. I know it's a big install, but you know, it'll be worth it. You just take your time with it. Don't rush it. Play it over a couple months. Don't feel like you need to play the game all the time, which is a struggle I have because once I start a game, I want to complete it. But this time, I just took my time with it. It took about about a month to complete, and it was just fantastic. I loved it. I loved it. But yeah, that's just me. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to Jack's Game Reviews if you want more reviews or any other kind of content. Let me know. Cheers. Bye bye.